title was called Stars Are the Windows of Heaven. It was like one of those very songs that are, for a kid to sing. And stars, let's see, stars are the windows of heaven where angels peek through. Up in the sky, they keep an eye on kids like me and you. You get it?
And clear of the closing doors, please.
What up, son? What up? Grind and Pivot, Queens, New York, pivotal moments that changed everything. Today, for me, this is exciting. I got to tell you, I was a 10-year-old, 11-year-old in New York, Queens, New York. And when you heard this person on the radio, you started bopping, you started snapping your fingers. And I have her here. And I'm going to say she would be straight out of Detroit, Michigan. You'll never know that. The grande dame of R&B with a lot of jazz. And once again, I'm going to say it. Since you've been gone, all that's left is a band of gold. We got Freda Payne in the house. Freda, how are you? So good. You look fantastic. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine. I'm fine, Louie. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. So happy we were able to put this together. I got goosebumps bringing back. I love that song. I mean, I love all your stuff, but obviously that one stands out because of what was going on back then. How are you making out there? You're out in California. Where are you? You're on the West
Yeah,
Coast?
I'm in the valley. I'm in
Ah,
California, and it's nice and warm here, and the weather's great, and I've been okay. I've been doing okay. Of course, made it all through the pandemic, and I've been vaccinated. Thank
yep.
you very much.
Good. Thank you. Me
And
too. Me too.
okay, and I'm just, looking forward to, this, let's say the country and not only just us, hopefully the world opening up because it's over a year now. I remember it was back in last year in March, and I had a flight. I had a gig in outside of Atlanta in Decatur, Georgia, and I did a concert there, and I flew back on, I think it was the 14th it was the 14th of March. It was a
Yeah, right around the
Sunday.
time. That was it right there.
Yeah, and I remember it because it was like the gig was on the 13th, I believe. Yeah, the 13th, and the next day I was scheduled to fly back on an evening flight, and I was able to go to my friend Candy Staten, her birthday
Mm.
celebration because she lives outside of Atlanta, and I went to her house outside of Atlanta to celebrate her birthday, and then they drove me to the airport, and I flew back home, and right after that everything shut down.
Yeah, lockdown. Absolutely right. Yeah, it's been
Hmm.
quite an eventful year in this
Hmm.
in this country and in this world. No doubt. Well, I'm glad to see that you're doing well. You know, you're I read a little bit about you over the years, and R&B is a big thing for you. That I knew, obviously. But
Hmm.
what I really didn't know, and maybe you could paint a little picture of us, you were heavily influenced by jazz, correct?
Oh yeah, I was from the age of 12, which is unusual because most kids are kind of like into the R&B or the pop, whatever. And I liked R&B at the time, but R&B at when I was 12 hadn't really quite developed to the point where it was really, really going strong. And what I mean, it got better once Motown took on,
Right.
and they started producing some really good music. So, but I was 12 years old. I remember, and I remember I had a radio in my room, and the radio was just like right above my head. You know, uh, I had a twin bed, and the radio was like on a little shelf. And I would late at night when I would go to bed, I would turn on the radio and I would listen to a certain station. Um, because the pop stations, I didn't, what the music wasn't wasn't thrilling me. So I would turn on this other station that they played a lot of jazz vocalists. They had Chet Baker.
One
They
of my
had like,
all-time favorites. All-time
yeah.
favorites.
Oh, really? Chet
Oh,
Baker,
Chet
like
Baker.
Yeah, Julie London, uh, Ella Fitzgerald, Carmen McRae, some
Right.
Billie Holiday,
Sarah Vaughan.
Chris
Oh,
Connor,
Chris Connor.
Sarah
Right.
Vaughan,
Right.
Dizzy Gillespie, and
Oh
people
boy.
like that. Oh, and I fell in. I discovered Miles Davis, I think, when I was 13, and I bought this album. It was called Sketches of Spain, and I start playing that album, and I was just over the moon. I said, "Oh my God." It just opened up my brain.
Right. Right. When did you
It
start?
was so romantic. It was like,
Great. When did you start singing? When did you get the bug? Early on?
I got no, I wasn't singing at all until I think I was like 12 or 13. No, I was 12. My music teacher, I started taking piano lessons at an early age. My
Right.
mother started me taking lessons when I was like 6, and I took piano lessons, like for about maybe 7 years,
Right.
as long with my sister as well. We both had lessons, and I remember I was 12, and my piano teacher, her name was Mrs. Ruth Ann Johnson, and she said, "We're getting ready to put together our next piano recital because there was a recital every year." And she said, "I want to see if your voice is good enough to sing in a group that I'm putting together of 6 people." And so I sang for her, and she said, "Oh, Frida, you're more than good enough. I want you to do a solo."
Wow.
So I did a
Okay.
solo,
Right.
and I also sang in the group.
That's
And
fantastic.
after that, I remember my mother's friends started to gather around, and they were amazed. They said, "Oh, we didn't know Frida could sing like that. We thought it was just Sherry," because Sherry, my sister, she was the one that was the outgoing one. She was the entertainer. She was the gregarious, like, I'm not shy kind of
Right.
person.
Right.
I
Right.
was the shy person. It was my shyness that held me back. So I wouldn't sing for anybody, for that occasion when she asked me to sing, I did it. And from that point on, and then for some reason, I guess it gave me a lot of confidence, because then I started to enter talent contest, and I was winning. And then I got to enter a contest that was on TV in Detroit.
Really?
And yeah, and it was Channel 7, and or was it Channel 4? But anyway, no, it was WXYZ in Detroit, Channel 7,
Holy
and
cow.
it was called the Ed McKenzie's Dance Hour.
That's
That
very
was
cool.
like
That's very cool.
that was Detroit's version of the Dick Clark
American
American
Bandstand. Right.
Bandstand.
Of course. Okay.
And it was
Okay.
the same kind of format, with the teenagers dancing to the latest, records that were
Sure.
really, getting all the airplay. And the only difference is they featured talent contest that consisted of just 4 acts. It would be every week, 4 acts, and that was it. So I auditioned for that, and they chose me, and so I was on the show, and I won. And then 6 months later, they called me back to appear on the show again. I won the second time. So I would win a trophy and a record player.
Wow. No
So I
kidding.
had 2 record
Okay.
players and 2 trophies.
What were some of the What were some of the songs you were singing or
Well, I
performing?
sang,
What did you remember?
yeah, you mean the song that I sang at the recital was called "Stars Are the Windows of Heaven." It was like one of those very songs that are, for a kid to sing. And stars, let's see, stars are the windows of heaven where angels peek through. Up in the sky, they keep an eye on kids like me and you. You get
Got
it?
it. Got it.
So, and then after that, I think I won the contest. There were 2 different songs I won. I won the contest. I think the first time I won it by singing "Too Young to Go Steady." And
Okay.
how I came upon that song, Nat King Cole had recorded that song.
Right.
So I copied the Nat King Cole version, "Too Young to Go Steady." And then the second time when I went on, I did that old black magic.
Oh, that's great.
And guess who was they had a guest, like a professional entertainer, whoever, a headliner who was headlining at a local supper club in Detroit. And that person was Sammy Davis
You
Jr.
gotta be kidding. You're
I'm
kidding me.
not. And
Wow.
he and I, after the show was over and I had won, he took a picture with me.
Oh my
I
gosh.
still have that picture. I have an 8x10 black and white glossy of Sammy Davis Jr. and I standing together, and I'm holding my trophy.
I mean, we might have to stop the interview right there. I don't know how much better it can get, you know?
Yeah, and it just went on from there. I start singing on the radio. I got auditioned for this program called Don Large's Make Way for Youth. And that was on station WJR, that was located atop of in the penthouse of the Fisher building in Detroit. And so I did that for 3 years. And it was a choral group. And Don Large would often pick me out, select me to do solos a lot. And that helped a lot. So
That's
yeah, I
amazing.
did
There's a
quite a
lot of
bit of that.
history there. So,
Yeah.
who was helping you get to the place where, your family was helping you as you were going around? Who got you to these places? Who you met a lot, you were meeting a lot of people at that time for a young girl,
Yeah.
right? What was
Yeah,
it,
well,
what was it like?
my
Your mom
mother
took
and
you?
my dad, my
Mhm.
mother would drive me to all my work, because at the Fisher Building, that was not walking distance. My mother would drive me to my rehearsals twice a week, and then she'd drive me to the show on Saturday, or my father, whoever was available at the time. They supported me. Yeah. Yeah, I took ballet class. She always had to drive Sherry and I to the ballet class and then pick us up, or sometimes she'd wait till the class was over with. But yeah, my mother was my my number one supporter, and my dad. He was my stepdad. He was
Right.
my
So they
number
both
one
were
supporter
really,
as well.
that's beautiful. So you had this stability. That's
I
a
had that. I
beautiful
had
thing.
that. Yeah.
You attended the Detroit Institute of Musical Arts, correct?
Yeah, but that was it was less than a year I did that. And then my mother found this lady, Ruth Ann Johnson, who I mentioned before.
Right, the piano, right,
And
piano,
she would
right.
come to our house and she would give piano lessons to me and my sister
What were
Sherry.
you? What was she? What were you? I mean, my dad was an arranger, so and I started playing early too. So,
Oh,
what did you learn? What were you learning early on? Was it scales and also
yeah, like we played out a book of Matthews,
right?
different books like that, piano, Matthews, Schumer.
So Schumer, right?
uh,
Okay, right. Alfred
yeah, you
Schumer,
know what I
Alfred,
mean,
right?
Bach,
Alfred, yeah,
like
yeah.
you
Bach
learn the,
conventions, the Bach conventions and stuff like that.
yeah,
Classical.
yeah, those scales that sort of like, I wasn't, I have to tell you this, I wasn't meant to be a pianist, okay?
Okay, but
But
you
I
got it.
learned, but because of that, it enabled me. I started like going to the music store downtown. And when I had to buy my music books for my piano lessons, I started looking at the other books, and there was Gershwin, Lee and Ira Gershwin, and then there was like Rogers and Hart. So I bought my first secular music book, and that was the Rogers and Hart song book.
Ah,
I
okay,
bought
right, right.
that,
So you
and then
got
I
all
got
those standards, the show, so all
the
those show
standards,
tunes.
Cole Porter. I got a
Yeah,
Cole Porter song book,
yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
started learning some of those standards.
Yeah,
That's
those
how
songs are
yeah.
amazing, right? I mean, those songs, it's interesting too. When we go back to talking about Chet Baker, I mean, like "Let's Get Lost."
Let's get
And,
lost,
oh,
lost in each other's
oh, I
arms.
love that.
Let's
I
get
mean, it's
lost.
I
I mean,
fall in
what they
love
call him,
too
the angel.
easily. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
fall in love too fast.
yeah,
I
exactly.
fall in love too incredibly hard for a love to last. My heart should be well schooled, 'cause I've been fooled in the past. I fall in
Unbelievable.
love too
Too easily,
easily.
I
I
fall in
fall
love.
in love too
Too fast.
fast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chet Baker, great. Probably one of the more underrated talents
Oh
from back
yeah.
in there, but he had some issues, obviously.
Oh, we heard that. And he also wasn't a bad trumpet player.
No, I was going to say, but forget about vocally. The guy could play. He could definitely, yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely had chops. So
Yeah.
when did you leave Detroit to go. Now, am I skipping around? Because I know you came to New York in like 63, 62, 63.
61 or 62, I think. It was around 62.
Right. How did you take us to that pivotal moment? What happened? You getting to New York and wanting to go to New York. What was the story?
The story is when I was 14, I had been courted by Berry Gordy Jr., who was at that time scouting and looking for young people who he could work with. And he started hearing about me because of the singing around Detroit and winning talent contest and all that
The whole
stuff.
scene, right?
Yeah, so he
Oh
wrote
boy.
songs for me. He started writing some songs. He wrote 4 songs just for me. And I was taking ballet and Afro-Cuban, and he would sometimes come and watch me dance. He would come to my dance class and stand there and watch me dance. And so we recorded the 4 songs at United Sound, which was the premier recording studio in all of Detroit. It was located on West Grand Boulevard, the same street where Hitsville is
I
located
was going to
right
say
now.
exactly. Hey, you getting everybody out there listening? You're getting a history lesson right
This
now.
is history, baby. And so what happened was Barry wanted to manage me. And what happened was he and my mother would they weren't on the same page. I mean, he was wanting a certain thing, a certain percentage and this and that. And my mother was like going back at him and negotiating with him, and he wasn't willing to negotiate. And I think he kept that standard even after he formed Motown. You would have to. It
His
was
way
well
or
kno-
his way or
it
no
was
way.
well known that you had to sign your contract as is. It was either his way or no way, and that wasn't how I felt. I didn't feel that was fair. I really didn't think it was fair, and so we remain friends to this day. There's never, we're like, they consider me he
Family,
considers
right?
me
They consider you
family.
family,
Yeah.
of course,
It's
absolutely.
just that you have different ways. And so by the time I turned 18, oh, by the way, by the time let's say I started doing commercials when I was
Right.
16, I still was busy as heck. I was in high school and I was busy as heck. I was always doing something, the radio show, Make Way for You. So when I was 17, I got to audition for Duke Ellington,
Oh boy.
and he wanted me
What was that
to
like?
come in. Okay. What happened was
Woo.
his son, whose name is Mercer
Merce,
Ellington,
correct.
he's Mercer. Mercer, we had a neighbor, and he was a very prominent attorney in Detroit. His name was Allen Early Jr. And it was Allen Early was at a cocktail party where he met Mercer, and Mercer, he started telling Mercer about me. And so Mercer said, and then he got Mercer to come to my house so he could hear me sing. So
Really
Mercer did that. He came to my house and
crazy.
I sang for him. And he said, "Oh my God," he says, "you're pretty good." He says, "I want my dad to hear you." So he said the band was actually the reason why Mercer was in town is that the band was playing in Detroit at a theater. I think it was called the Riviera Theater. And so uh, he called his dad, and Duke agreed to hear me sing. So we drove down to the Gotham Hotel. That's where the Duke and the band was playing. I mean, they were staying there, and I sang for Duke. He played some songs, a
So
couple of songs.
Duke was playing. Duke played piano and
He
you sang.
played for
Duke,
me while I sang
come on.
in his suite. They had a piano in his
Right,
suite,
of course.
and I sang for Duke Ellington alone in his suite. And he said,
Wow.
"Freda, he said, you remind me of Lena Horne."
Ooh.
And he says, "I want to hear you sing with my band." And so he said, "The only problem is that we're leaving for Pittsburgh in the morning." And he said, "If there's any way you can have your parents or someone drive
Yeah.
you to Pittsburgh, I would love to bring you up and sing with the band.
So
You
what'd
know,
you do?
just a
You went
guest
home.
appearance.
What? Tell me this. Tell us the conversation in when you got home with your moms.
Well, yeah, I told them,
I'm
and my
going.
mother, and it was my mother. It was my mother. It was me, my mother, and I had a mentor at the time who was like a pianist, and he played for me a lot. And we did work in some little clubs in
Sure.
Detroit, undercover, if you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because I was underage.
Yeah, of course.
And his name was Mac Ferguson, and
Mm.
and so it was my mother drove, Mac Ferguson went, and my sister Sherry went along, and we drove to Pittsburgh.
All right.
And so,
Of
no, Sherry
course.
didn't go on that trip. She went on another trip. She didn't go on that. It was just Mac Ferguson and my mother and I. And we drove to Pittsburgh, and Duke brought me up on this, on the
Jeez.
bandstand, and I sang. I was like, I
Wow.
think I did 2 songs. I Got It Bad and That Ain't Good and Mood Indigo. And after that, oh, and I got to meet Billy
I was gonna. Oh,
Strayhorn.
right.
He was
Jesus.
there. He was there. Duke introduced me to Billy
So you're
Strayhorn.
talking royalty here.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. Now when I talk about it, it's like I did that.
Yeah, it's surreal, right? It's got to be
I
surreal.
did
Yeah.
that.
Right.
And Duke wanted me to hire me as a band singer for 10 years. He sent a contract to that effect, and it was for 10 years and with an escalating pay scale. So my mother said, Mr. Ellington, I see here, like, what if in like 4 years from now or 5 years from now, you've made my daughter a star and she can command, let's say, thousands of dollars, way over what you're offering here for her appearances. Would you adjust her salary? He said, no.
Really?
Yeah. So we didn't go. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that never materialized. And then my mother would have had to go on the road with me because I mean, these are all these old guys. And honey, I was 17, but I looked like a grown woman.
Yeah. What was it like? Here, so let's give us a little juice.
Who
Give us a little
knows
juice.
what Duke was thinking?
I'm
I
telling you.
remember Duke's grandson, Paul Ellington, once said to me, this was like about 10 years, about 15 years ago. He says, you know what? I wonder what my grandpa was really thinking.
Oh, geez. Wow. Wow.
I said, you got a dirty mind, Paul.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say maybe you'll have to give us a little juice. What it was like on the road. I mean,
Yeah, well, stuff like that. Yeah, but
right?
the girl singers,
Oh yeah, absolutely,
so who
absolutely,
knows?
right. So, let's go back. So when you did get to New York, what was going down in New York when you got to New York?
Well, when I got to New York, it was sort of like I was just like a fish out of water, and I was like, I had a roommate, because at first I was going to stay at the YWCA,
Mhm.
and then I met this girl who her name is Beverly Davenport, and I have not been in touch with her in literally decades. I don't
Wow.
even know if
I
she's
Bev, if
still
you're
with us.
listening and there's somebody knows Beverly Davenport, shout out here. And
Davenport, Beverly. By the way, I'm writing my book. It's just about almost finished. And of course, my story in detail is in there.
great.
And I talk about her as well. And it was like, it was weird. I mean, it was kind of fun, but at the same time, it could have been dangerous because you're in New York. I'm a young girl.
Sure.
I'm not chaperoned, but I just had my own, common sense. And sometimes, when you're young, you are dumb.
Yeah, of course, of
Okay.
course, of course, of course. But you get,
And
things fall a certain way too if you have
yeah,
at least
but
half a brain and some street
by
smart.
the way, she was a lovely person, a very, very intelligent, well kept person. She worked she was a Detroiter, and she had moved to New York.
But she was not a
And
musician. She was not a musician. You know what
no,
I'm saying?
no, she
Okay.
wasn't really. She was working for Pacific Bell,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happened was my parents actually supported me while I was in New York. So that's what happened. And then I kind of, started going out and hanging out. I went to this club downtown in the 40s in Manhattan, and it was called the Champagne Colony, and it was like a piano bar.
Mm-hmm.
You go downstairs, and it was kind of dark, And I met a lot of people in the business. Johnny Nash would hang out there.
Okay, I can see clearly
Been
Johnny
around the
Nash, right?
Yeah, Johnny Nash, Luther Dixon,
Mm-hmm.
who was depicted in a Broadway musical a few years ago. About It was all about Scepter Records and the lady who ran it, who was the president of the company, who owned the company, Florence Greenberg, and they portrayed Luther Dixon, who was a songwriter and producer, who was on the staff there as well. I met him and other people. There's probably a few other people I met, and from there I kind of like, start people, and I would sing, and then people would like, say, "Oh wow, you sound good," like, why don't you work this club or audition for this club or whatever. And I eventually met a man by the name of Carl Carruthers, who walked me into GAC, the agency, the booking agency, GAC. And he introduced me to Sidney Bernstein. Sid Bernstein.
Sid
So Sid
Bernstein, the
Bernstein,
Sid Bernstein,
the man who brought the
the
Beatles
Beatles, right?
Beatles
Exactly.
over, who booked them
Mm-hmm.
first
Mm-hmm.
and brought them over to the U.S.
Right.
And Sidney became my first agent.
Ah,
And then it was through Sidney Bernstein that he got me um, to audition to get a contract with ABC Paramount. So
gotcha.
I got my first record deal at the age of 19 with ABC Paramount.
Right. Now you were
And
also you were gigging on the regular as well. Were you gigging in clubs on the regular?
off and on, yeah.
Off and
Oh
on,
yeah,
great.
I worked uptown. I worked the Baby Grand that was up in Harlem,
Mm-hmm.
uptown, along with Nipsey Russell, who was the in-house comedian.
Right.
And some places, a couple of places down in the Village. What do they call it? Soho now.
Sure.
But it was just back then. It was just called the Village,
Yeah, sure.
you
Absolutely. It was
know.
vibrant time. Absolutely back
And
then.
also, I worked in Atlantic City with Larry Steele, Smart Affairs. I worked in Atlantic City in the summer, during the summer months. They booked me a lot, but through those bookings, I got to work with Marvin Gaye.
Oh boy, great.
I got to work with Sam Cooke and a few people like that.
Right.
And
All
then
giants.
I obtained a manager. I met him because I was booked at a club in Brooklyn called the Elegante, and it was a supper club, and the owner was a guy by the name of Joe Scandori, and Joe Scandori wound up managing me, and because of him, I got to get booked a lot on the Johnny Carson Tonight Show.
That's right. I know you were. Absolutely. What was that like? Was it how exciting was that?
Oh God, that was very exciting. I would call my mother and say, "Oh, I'm booked. I'm booked the next week. I got this on this day." My mother would call everybody in Detroit.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
my daughter's doing the Tonight Show, and then this was in 1967. I got to I wound up being on a Broadway show on Broadway, and that was Hallelujah Baby, and I was Leslie Uggams' understudy.
Oh boy.
And I was the only understudy to actually go on and do the full show. And I did that 6 times.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
I got to do a lead starring role on Broadway in a hit Broadway musical called Hallelujah Baby.
Right. So
So
you're
I
full
got that
circle.
under my belt.
Yeah. All it's painting. It's some canvas. That is some canvas. So let's skip up to 69, 70. What's going on? How did the whole Band of Gold thing evolve? Take us into the beginning of how the process was. That was written by Dozier and Holland, right? That song was
It was because here's the thing: if you saw the record, it would say Ron Dunbar and Edith Wayne, or if you saw the sheet music, Ron Dunbar, Edith Wayne, but they were not the writers.
right.
You see, at the time, Holland, Dozier, and Holland were in a raging lawsuit with Motown.
Correct.
They sued Motown, and then Motown countersued them back. So one of the stipulations was that they were not allowed to do any writing during that period until the lawsuit was settled. And so they used Ronald Dunbar, who worked for Holland Dozier and Holland, but he's the one that actually, like rehearsed me on the song. And Edith Wayne was an assumed name for a lady by the name of Vernell, and that's what happened there.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so that's what happened there.
So
Yeah.
they brought you they brought you the song. Where did it take us? Where did it take place? So give us a little bit of like kind of the background of like they said, I got a song for you. How did it, someone playing on the piano? Was it just a verse? Was it chorus?
Well, no, here's what happened. Okay, it was I remember Ron Dunbar used to pick me up from my parents' home. And because when I was living in Detroit, I was living in New York. So they flew me back home to Detroit. And so I'd stay at my parents'.
Of course.
And so Dunbar would come and pick me up from the house, and we'd go to Eddie Holland's apartment. He had a couple of apartments, maybe 2 or 3. And he would take me there, and it would just be the two of us. And the first time I heard it, it was a track. It was the track. It was the track.
Oh, it was already recorded. The track was.
It was already pre-recorded. It had been pre-recorded.
What did it have a dummy vocal over it? It had like a guide vocal or no?
No, there was no guide vocal on it. It was the track, and he showed me the lyrics, and I said, "Oh, the track is nice. I like this. The track is great." And he said, "Now let's go over. Here's where you come in here. Boom, 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 boom." And then I come in, and then I started, learning. And then when I got to the lyric that said, "But that night on our honeymoon, we stayed in separate rooms," I said, "What the heck is this?" He said, "Well, that's the lyric. You have to learn it." I said, "But this song is for somebody who's like 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah, this ain't happening.
Get married on their wedding night
and stays in separate,
and not what like have a problem like this." I said, "This is not a song. This is not a song for me. Right. I'm a grown woman. I'm a grown, mature woman."
I love it.
He said, "Freda, you don't have to like it. Just sing it.
Just sing, of course.
And I said, "Okay." Just like that. I said, "Okay."
Amazing.
That's what I was there for. I was there. I went with them and signed with Invictus because I was looking to get a hit. And I didn't care if it was a pop hit or R&B hit. I was in that mode of doing something to escalate my career.
Exactly. So Lord knows they had some hits.
Yeah. Oh God, they were on a roll.
When you heard that,
Golden Boys.
Yeah, I didn't forget it. Oh, forget it. Yeah, I mean, you could do a whole thing on them. So when you heard it, did you feel yourself like this is pretty good? Did you know?
Well, it was good. I thought they were all good. It was like, okay, this is a good song. It's all right, And then I said, oh, the other ones I rehearsed, like the Unhooked Generation, Unhooked Generation was the first single they put out because they thought that was going to be the one.
Sure.
But nada, it wasn't.
Right.
And so after Unhooked Generation came out and didn't stick, the following year, 1970, they released Band of Gold. I believe it was in February. And it started to slowly creep up.
Right.
Slowly.
Can you tell us how it was how the recording went? Can you talk about the recording? I mean, anything interesting about the session, about the session, and even do you remember who played on the session? You remember any of that?
Oh, well, see, I wasn't there when they, like you say.
So the track was already done, and you just laid the vocal, and you just laid the vocal.
Yeah, that's it. When they brought me into the studio, it was just me, Eddie Holland, Brian, and Lamont.
Oh, so they produced. Okay, so
and Dunbar was there too, but they would be in this. In the sound in the control room, and I'd be in the vocal booth.
Right. So you just laid down. The vocal track.
Yeah, the musicians weren't there at all.
Right. So yeah, that's interesting.
And the engineer, of course, was Lawrence Horn.
Okay, that's a good. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So it started moving.
Started moving. It was slow, but it started inching up, and it was kind of exciting because it wasn't like Zoom. It was like boom. Every week it went up. Every week on Billboard. It was Billboard, Record World, Cashbox. And finally, how I really knew that it was really a big, huge hit. I was doing a special in Toronto, Canada, and I was in my dressing room, and one of the production men came to my room and said, "Miss," knocked on the door. "Freda Payne, there's a call for you from the BBC in London in the office." So I went and picked up the phone, and the first thing the guy said, "Freda Payne, how does it feel to have a #1 record in the UK?" And I said, "Really?"
Wow.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "It's been #1 here for a whole week already." And it remained that way for 6 whole weeks, by the way.
Wow.
And so I said, "Well, I feel great. That's fantastic news." And then he asked me another strange question. He said, "Oh, let me ask you this. Do you think that if Dinah Ross had recorded that song, it would be an even bigger hit?" I said, "If it was meant for Dinah Ross would have recorded it." I said, "So I have no idea what would have
Yeah.
happened if
Why are
she
you
had
asking?
recorded
Why are
it."
you asking me that? Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
like, but people ask sort of I call them off the cuff.
Yeah. They wanna get a reaction. They're looking to
Yeah.
get
Oh,
some
by
sort
the
of
way, I
reaction.
have to say, I like your George Floyd shirt,
Thank you. Thank you.
t-shirt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, George
Believe it
Floyd.
or not, I just recently interviewed my nephew, who's the mayor of Minneapolis.
Oh my
My nephew.
goodness.
How's that? So that's pretty
Oh
heavy.
wow.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Oh
in honor,
wow.
yes, 100% of honor of Mr. Floyd.
Jeez.
So
So
I this is great information. I love hearing things like this. Did you start to promote? Did you start go out and promote the record? Not promote. Sing. Obviously, start to
oh yeah.
appear. You were constantly on the road, obviously singing.
Yeah, well, they would have me booked with on different like rock, R&B shows,
Right.
like St. Louis or Chicago and places like that, maybe New York
With
and
other artists of the
with
day.
other artists of the day. Yeah.
Oh
Hmm.
boy, sounds pretty cool. Sounds pretty. Did you become friends with anybody special on on those ventures?
Well, we were, well, you might say that some of them, but it was like it was part of the par for the course, you know. You just I remember headlining the Apollo in Harlem.
Okay.
I headlined the Apollo, and this was, I think, right right after, I think, when Bring the Boys Home was being released, but Band of Gold was a bona fide hit, and the acts under me that were the acts under me, the OJs,
Oh boy. Okay.
Edwin Starr,
Edwin. Oh boy.
and I forget who else, but it was like that's where I was at the time. I was the
Right.
headliner.
Right. Amazing. Really,
And
really
then years
amazing.
later I was opening for the OJs.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, listen, it's a
And then
trajectory of a
in the
career.
UK, I worked with Edwin Starr in the UK. It was like a tour. We had a that lasted 2 months, and it was just me, Martha Reeves, and Edwin Starr. And Edwin Starr was like the headliner, and then Martha Reeves and me.
Wow.
It
That's
was like
amazing.
I think they billed it as the Motown Magic or Motown Review or something like that. And I said to myself, I was never signed with Motown, but they were just determined to put me with Motown. I said, well, as long as Barry doesn't complain, I'm
Right.
fine.
You're on. Right.
And he's
Exactly.
never complained about that.
Right. What was what was your personal life back then? I mean, you were constantly working, constantly on the road from being a young girl, teenage 20s.
Yeah.
And then what was it like? Now I'm not asking personal questions in terms of what went on. I'm asking more what was it like, personally for you? You were really on your own, right?
It was kind of, in a way, it wasn't as happy as I would have liked it to be. I was kind of, at times I was kind of miserable, and other times I was just dealing with it like, hey, you know, like they say there's a price. Sometimes you look at people who are really doing good and making it, and they're at the top of the mountain. You think, oh my God, I wish I could be them. Don't ever wish that, because you don't know what they're going
Right. You
through.
don't know how they're feeling. Absolutely. Of
Yeah,
course
how
not.
they're
Yeah.
feeling, what they're going through. And I learned a lesson that everything that glitters is not gold, for sure. Everything that glitters is not gold, and you don't get it for free, and there's a sacrifice. For most success, you have to sacrifice something.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better. You're 100% right. Youth is wasted on the young. You know that, right? I mean, as we get
Yeah, oh
older, right?
yeah. Yeah, but if you make it through, let's say if you get past 30 or 35, and if you haven't learned anything by then, shame on you.
Yeah. All right, that's fair. I'll give you that. So years go by, you're working, you're still constantly involved, whether it be in commercials, music, shows. You keep on going.
Mhm.
You still have that jazz thing in the back of your
Yeah.
catalog somewhere, huh?
Yeah,
And
I kind of had to put it behind me for a while, for a few years, and that went on all through the 70s, and then in the 80s, I it kind of like still kind of went on, but I would sneak in a song that I felt was acceptable, that was like a hit or something like that, that was being played a lot. I would do that, and so I didn't really get into my jazz chops again, probably until the 90s. And that no, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm forgetting about Duke Ellington's Sophisticated Ladies.
oh,
And that definitely got me back to the jazz, because I did my first Duke Ellington's, that was it was a hit on Broadway,
yeah, the review. I remember the
Sophisticated
show. Yeah,
Ladies.
yeah, absolutely.
And I did it um in 1982 and 83. It was like an 8-month run, a sit down run in Las Vegas at the Desert Inn. And the headline was Harold Nicholas. It was Paula Kelly, Harold Nicholas, and me. The three of us, we were the headliners. And I was definitely singing jazz then,
For sure. For sure.
Duke
For sure.
Ellington's music. And then we did the A Train. We had the scat there, the intermittent scat, between me and then Harold, and then the sax would take 8, and then we would take 8 or 16 and go back and forth. So that's when I got my chance to get back into the jazz. And so it started back in the 80s, and I wound up doing 6 different companies over a span of over 20 years of Duke Ellington's Sophisticated Ladies.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
that got some longevity out of that. Now, I forgot to mention, talk about you had the Jet magazine cover one time, right?
I've been on Jet magazine cover about 6 times.
Okay, so I remember. So
Several.
originally,
I've done several. And I did the cover of Ebony magazine.
that's right. How did you get those? Just be in terms because
They liked me.
they did. I think so. I think so.
And
How was
they,
that?
they,
Was it
and
that was interesting as well, correct? The photo
yeah,
shoots
Jet
and everything that went
magazine,
on.
they were like, they supported me.
Right, big
I
time.
mean, they started supporting me from the time I was on a talent contest in New York. It was a national show called Ted Mack's Amateur Hour.
I remember it. I
And
remember when
and
I was a kid, 10 Max.
you remember that?
Well, I
Yeah,
remember of it. Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
it was right around the time. I was still
You
young,
had to
but
be a little kid. Well,
right.
that was
Very
Ted
little. Yeah.
Mack was like the equivalent of American Idol.
Yeah.
For The
Correct.
Voice. It
Correct.
was the talent show, and they would audition people in different cities, and they would, book them and fly them into New York. Well, they flew me into New York with my mother, and I did the show, and I didn't win. I won second place, but because of that, Jet Magazine did a write up on me 2 weeks later, and I said, how in the world did they even know about me? And I felt I was in awe of that, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And then about a year, about 4 years later, I get on the cover of Jet. I won the cover, and that was because of the fact that Quincy Jones had embraced me, and I was singing with his big band on some shows, and I was on the cover based because of that.
Wow. Amazing. Some career. Incredible. Incredible. So you got your jazz chops back going, and you have a new record out, correct?
I've got a new, well, I would say album, but it's like 6 cuts and it's a EP.
Right. They
But
call it an EP.
honey,
Right.
the six
Right.
cuts, I mean, you don't want to be, you could care less about, you ever take some CDs and it's like 12, 13, 14 songs, and then it might be only one or two that you really like.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Or
Of
three,
course.
if that, sometimes it's one song. But it's I did 4 duets. It's all big band and strings, and it was recorded here in Hollywood at
Capitol Studio A, right?
Capitol
Yeah. Tell
Studio
us, what was
Studio
that
A.
like? What was that
Yeah.
like?
Oh my God. I was signed to Capitol back in the 70s. Right after I left Invictus, I got signed to Capitol in 76. I did 3 albums on Capitol. But anyway, and then Capitol was our distributor was distributor for Invictus.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I also did a jazz album that was out in 2014, and it was on the Mac Avenue label, which is a jazz label, and that was a wonderful album. It was produced by Bill Cunliffe and Al Pryor. And so this being back in Capitol again was just it was a dream, more so because I did the 4 duets. And the duets, the reason why I say a dream, Johnny Mathis.
Wow.
I did a duet with Johnny.
Right. You did the Gershwin song with Johnny
I did.
Mathis,
They
right?
can't take that away from me,
On the
the
way.
Gershwin song. And then I did a duet with Kenny Lattimore,
One of my
who is
favorites.
like, oh my God, he is an R&B jazz pop artist. I would say R&B jazz.
R&B, definitely, for sure.
Kenny he has a honey voice.
Yeah.
And we did Let There Be Love, which was like another standard that
And that's the name of the album,
and
correct?
that's
Is
the
that the name?
title of the album
Right.
is Let There Be Love. And then I did a duet with Miss Dee Dee Bridgewater, who is one of the finest jazz singers around. And we did Moanin' and Doodlin'. Moanin' was Bobby Timmons and John Hendricks.
Oh, Bobby
And then,
Timmons is yeah. Oh, he could play
yeah,
piano player, Bobby Timmons.
baby,
Right.
they find me
Right.
moaning,
Right.
yes,
Yeah. Exactly.
cause of all the trouble I've seen, yeah. And then we did 2 songs together, almost like a short medley, and that was Doodlin', which is a Horace Silver
Oh,
composition.
wow.
Horace Silver, and John Hendricks laid down the lyrics on that one. And then I did a duet with Kurt Elling, and oh, he is to me, he is a premier male jazz vocalist. He's won multiple Grammys in the jazz field, and I especially like the way he scats. So
Yeah,
we did a
amazing.
duet.
So
Our love is here to
when did the
stay.
album just is out and it's available anywhere you can anywhere? I mean, you have your website as well, right? I
You
know
can
you
go to
have your website.
it's on my website, fredapayne.com, or I am Freda Payne, .com. And you can purchase it on the website. You can go to Amazon, Spotify, download, Pandora, all those different areas you can get it.
Yeah, we're
So
gonna put it in the descriptions below as well.
yeah.
And what's coming up? Any gigs coming up now that things are opening
Well,
up? What do we got?
it's a funny thing because I was talking about that with my agent today, and things are slow right now because some of the clubs that I normally would work are just still are closed, like Catalina Bar and Grill Jazz Club. but they're starting to book, and they're starting to book picking up like I think August, September, and so we're
Okay.
looking at maybe October, and then there's vibrato. I don't know when they're going to start, booking. That's Herb Alpert's club. And then, oh, I'm going to England, the UK, this coming September, and I'm doing something. And by the way, that's not a jazz gig. That's an R&B
Oh, really
gig
fantastic.
because
Okay,
I'm
good,
working with
good.
Shalimar. So
Oh, wow, really? Second time
yeah,
around. Really? Second? Wow,
yes.
wow.
So I'm going, say I work two genres.
Yeah,
I still do that stuff. And
of
then,
course.
but then mainly I mostly do jazz. I actually did a jazz club last November, believe it or not. That's called the Key in Baltimore, Maryland, the Keystone Corner. That was nice. It was 3 nights. They had 25% capacity. That's all they could have. And they streamed it for the 3 nights.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
real nice. Anything? I'm hoping you come to New York because I'll definitely be there.
Well, you know what? I was actually booked to play, I think was it Birdland?
Mm-hmm.
I was
Berlin for the
actually
blue.
booked to play Birdland last, I think June. Of course, it got of course that got
Yeah, of course.
postponed, put aside.
I'm sure you'll
So
be
I'm
back.
looking to get, rebooked back there.
Absolutely. So you're still
Mhm.
you're still rocking and rolling. You're still cranking, doing
Yeah.
great. A lot of energy. I love it. I want to thank you so much for taking a little bit of your time. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Favorite artist from back in the day that you give me one of your favorite artists back in the day that you
Uh,
knew and loved and cherished. Give us somebody.
well, there's Ella Fitzgerald, and I actually did, I do a lot of tributes to Ella in my like nightclub shows and performing arts centers. And I have also played Ella on the legitimate stage in theater as Ella with other actors
Wow,
and in
interesting.
costume. Yeah, I've done that. So I've done a show called Ella Fitzgerald, First Lady of Song. And I did it first time, it was in 2004 in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Maurice Hines directed it and choreographed it.
Oh boy.
And Lee
Wow.
Summers did the book, wrote the book. And um, and then I did it again in 2014 in Alexandria, Virginia, at a regional theater called Metro Stage. These are all regional theaters. These are
Yeah,
all equity houses.
sure.
And then I just did it in 2018 at the Delaware Theater in Wilmington, Delaware. And I always got rave reviews, and I got a rave review in the Washington Post when I did it in
Beautiful.
Alexandria, Virginia.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, I mean, I'm in awe. I'm in awe. I still, I'm in awe, and I even sang earlier I sang with Freda Payne. This is a beautiful thing. I can't get over it. I mean, you really a wealth of information, a great story, a career that is still budding. It's still going. Her new album, Let There Be Love. I'm hoping to get it on 10-inch vinyl. I hope maybe I can meet you one
Yes,
day and
yes, I'd
you'll
like to.
sign it for me. You'll sign it for me, maybe.
Of course. Of course, it was
I know you will.
produced by Rodrigo Rios. He's a Brazilian young man in his he's only 40, he's still in his early 40s. And executive producer is James Michael Getz.
Excellent. Fantastic. I want to thank you once again. You look great, feel good. It was an absolute pleasure. And since you've been gone, right?
All
Can you give
that's
us a little?
left
Can
is a
you give it
band
to
to
it? Can
go.
you give it? Can you give us a little bit on the out? Can you give us a little bit
Okay.
on the out?
Now that you're gone, all that's left is a band to go. All that's left of the dreams I hold is a band of gold and the memories of what love could be. If you were still here with me, you took me from the shelter of my mother. I had never known or loved any other. We kissed after taking vows, but that night on a honeymoon. We stayed in separate rooms. That's enough.
That's great. Fantastic. Freda, I love you. I wish you only the best. Stay well and amazing. Really,
Thank you,
thanks for
Louis. Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. I'll be in touch with you. I will. Everybody, keep your eyes out for this one. This one is still a gem.
Closing doors, please.